Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained. I am DM Bloodworth, and this is a continuation of the RPG A Day 2018 series of videos. Today is day 13, and this is the 13th day, so I finally caught up with the questions. And the question for today is describe how my gameplay has evolved. Now, I've done several videos and mentioned several times the progression of my role play game experience. So, if this is your first time to my videos, I started sometime in the late 1970s. I want to say anywhere between 77 through 79. And my very first box set that I had purchased was a Dungeons and Dragons box set, the 1980 version of it. And, we played that. My player group played that for, a couple of years until Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which I think we picked up around 81 or 82. Once that came out, we shifted over to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. But throughout most of my tabletop RPG gameplay, it was pretty consistent, whether it was with Dungeons and Dragons or some of the other RPGs that we were playing at the time. We played Star Frontiers. We played Call of Cthulhu, the first edition of that. We played Villains and Vigilantes. We played Toon. We played, just a number of RPGs. Bushido was another one that came to mind. Twilight 2000. So dozens, literally dozens of tabletop RPGs. And back then, once in a while, I'll revert back to saying P and P or pen and paper RPGs because that's what they were. They were pretty much called by us, at least back then. I had shifted to computer consoles, and especially once I graduated from high school, and my gaming group had scattered to either college or military service, or in some cases like myself, both eventually. And so I had to rely on console games and and then later, slightly later on, computer games. But in pretty much just my own gameplay, as far as how I approached RPGs, it really hadn't changed until I made my return back to tabletop RPGs around 2015, or around 2015. And the game that brought me back to tabletop RPGs was Mifrog. All right, and so Mifrog is a fantasy, kind of a low fantasy or low magic RPG game. It's not really a clone of it's not a clone of any particular game. What it is that it's a clone, if you will, of the type of game systems that some of the some of the games of the 1980s or early 1990s were. So it is crunchy, almost like a Rollmaster or a Harn or even a Hackmasters, but it's much more compartmentalized. You can take components out of it, and the game functions, very, very well. But the change that this game really brought to me, or my evolution, is that the one thing this game does, I think more so than any other RPG, at least in my experience, is that it's built on the premise that your player characters are just ordinary people going out and doing extraordinary things or attempting to do extraordinary things. And I mean, maybe Call of Cthulhu had somewhat of that kind of element to it as well. You weren't really, super powerful characters, but you were being challenged by, the challenges of the Cthulhu mythos, which would either leave you dead or leave you without any mind left. This isn't as severe as that was, but this game here will certainly, potentially leave your character dead, especially if you make foolish errors. But what this game really created an evolution in my gameplay is that it created the idea that your player characters are just ordinary people, and based on that, then they will have character traits and flaws. They will come from a small community. They will interact and have to show how they interact within that community. So it's almost like just more than just encouraging zero level characters. It really does build that system into, when you first create your characters. You do have to rely on others. Although you can do solo play with this, with a single player character, it's really not designed for that. And so the need for cooperation is certainly in this game. Other elements of this game that I think is kind of unique is that it really doesn't force the idea of the players buying into the lore of the land, the lore of the setting, and almost every aspect of the game kind of contributes to that sense of, this is the setting of Thule, and Thule is unique compared to any other RPG's setting. It's once again, it's low fantasy, but what magic is in the world is magic that is kind of tied to European legends, and it's tied to nature, and it's just tied to something that the player characters can understand and accept as being, kind of, you know, even if it's uncommon, but it's something that, is not shocking. It's like, all right, well, these are things that we grew up, in our, in the tales that were told to us. And so, this game in particular, evolved my gameplay in that I kind of encourage my players to fully buy into their characters and to fully buy into their characters' development before they began adventuring, and to fully develop the setting that the characters are in, at a very micro level, at a very localized level first, and then the characters can expand out from there. So that's pretty much it. Is that I looked at a game like this and saw all of those connections, and now when I'm playing any other game, like I'm currently writing an adventure for Bushido RPG, and I'm doing very very similar, kind of starting off adventure, in that the players will learn, not just about their own characters and from a younger age before they actually begin adventuring, but also the community that they're starting off with, and kind of the lore of the province that they're in. And so it's those basic building blocks to a much longer campaign that I think is the greatest part of my evolution is that I've changed in the way that I GM. I changed in the way that I write the adventures for my players. In that I try to incorporate as much of the game world into their actions, and then have to take what their actions were and then reinsert them back into the setting and look for, well, since they've done this, what would that effect look like back in their home village before they move on to a much broader world. So that's pretty much it. I hope it wasn't too rambling, but that's pretty much it. In describing how my gameplay has evolved. I think it's evolved for the better. I think that the players that I have played with in a variety of games, they kind of picked up on this as well, liking that kind of localization type of atmosphere to that first adventure for their characters, and it's certainly something that I would recommend that you try to do is to get your players engaged as much as you can with not just their characters but that very first setting that they're starting out with, because that's really what is, in my opinion, what is going to bring your world alive for your players is that they're going to see, well, this is where I started from, this is what I had done, this is what has changed because of that. I have real ownership over this game world, and it makes it much easier for them to buy in. So I hope you're all enjoying, the videos. I hope that you're enjoying making your videos. I've been trying to catch up on as many videos as I can. Excuse me. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the bell so that you can get alerts when I add new content. Probably running a game tonight, so that video will be coming up very soon. And, you all have a good upcoming week. And I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime, very soon. You all have a good evening.